Have you ever had a sneaking suspicion that your partner's cheating on you, but you don't have any real evidence? You just have like side information and like weird coincidences and like, that's strange moments, but you can't prove it? If so, listen up, and I would love to hear what you think at the end of this story as to whether or not I have valid concerns that I was just cheated on from my boyfriend of the last 12 months. So when I first met my boyfriend, he and I started things very quickly. And looking back now, I'm realizing like he didn't have a lot of friends. He didn't really have much of a life. His life was really like spending time with his kid and then like dating. So women. He didn't have any like solid friendships, but he did have one friendship that he had for 10 plus years. And what he originally told me about this friendship with a female, I might add, is that he was friends with her because they had a mutual friend who had died. And when she died, they got really, really close because they were both grieving her loss. But before she died, they were actually sleeping together and trying to hide it from her. So he didn't tell me that till later in our relationship, but he first originally told me that he was best friends with her because they both had this loss. And she had a live-in boyfriend and kind of a series of chaotic relationships, but she lived with her boyfriend. And every weekend he would go and hang out with her when I was with my kids. So every other weekend I'd be with my kids. He would go hang out with them. They would play games, but mainly drink and party. And he didn't introduce me to her until about 3-4 months in. So this is his best friend. He doesn't introduce me to her. He finally does. And we go over there for a game night. And the whole night, the two of them are drinking excessively. Like they're drinking more than anybody else. And I was a pretty heavy drinker at the time because I was trying to keep up with him. But they are like drinking and getting so drunk and so loud. And they both have this very frenetic energy between the two of them. Like, and a lot of this is evidence that it's going to be energy based. So if you're not woo, like keep scrolling. But if you are a spiritual girly, you know what I'm talking about. They had that frenetic sexual tension energy. And I was just kind of observing it. And he was, on my team in the games and stuff, but they were very like targeted, laser focused on each other. So about the second or third time that we go over there for games to play, they're getting more comfortable with me being there. And she and I are sitting out on the like back patio of her house and we're talking about him. And she refers to him and says, he's crazy. And I go, well, I haven't seen a crazy side to him because he was very nonchalant with me, very mysterious, kept a lot of parts of his life secret from me. He would just kind of gloss over information about his life or information about his preferences because he didn't want to let me in. He had a lot of walls up. So when she said to me that he was crazy, I was like, that's odd. You must have seen a side to him that I've never seen before. Another weird moment is he and I were talking one time. We were on a long drive and he revealed to me that the worst thing he had ever done was sleep with a married woman. And what he did was had a friend who was married and she tried to set him up with one of her friends. And he went out with that setup friend and didn't have a vibe, didn't have like a connection. And so he ended up hooking up with the married woman. So this was kind of a weird thing that he told me, and he never really touched on it again. He never told me who it was. But later, after the relationship ended and I saw other evidence, I was like, could she be the married one that he's been having this long-term relationship with, a sexual relationship with for like over 10 years? So we're at her house for like the third get together of the time that we've hung out with them. And at this point, they're getting really comfortable with me. The drinks are a-flowing. They are so lit. Everyone's so drunk. And we're playing a game. It's the three of us playing a game. Me, him, and her. Well, towards the end of the game, they start getting more and more intoxicated. He starts getting really irritated with me for some reason. Like, he felt like I wasn't playing the game right. So he stands up and stands off to the side. She gets up from the table and goes and stands next to him. And he starts singing this song, like, under his breath. Obviously for her, because she looks at him and she says his name and she's like, I love that song so much. She starts swooning. She's standing right next to him. They're having this little intimate moment. They're so drunk that they don't realize that I'm sitting a mere 2 feet away watching this exchange happen. So her boyfriend starts trying to come on to me and flirt with me because he can sense that they're flirting together. So he starts trying to flirt with me, and I'm like, what are we doing? So I get really uncomfortable and I ask him to take me home. We pack up, we go home, and I ask him very calmly, I'm in his bed, I jump in his bed, get my pajamas on, I'm drinking my drink, and I just ask him very calmly, that was some weird chemistry happening between the two of you. What was that? Like, I was not accusatory, I was not out of pocket, I was not chaotic. I was just generally asking the question of like, what was that? He got so irate. When I tell you, this man became unhinged in my response, and out came all the gaslighting, all the blame shifting, all the, you're just freaking crazy. What are you even talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about. He got so mad and so defensive that he literally took his pillow and blanket and went out to go sleep on the couch rather than confront what I'm bringing up to him. Get ready with me as I continue my evidence as to why I believe my boyfriend of 12 months was cheating on me with his best friend, who is a woman. So I bring it up to him. He goes out on the couch. After leaving me, stonewalling me for very calmly questioning him about the energy that he exchanged with his best friend, he then helped me carry all of my stuff out of his closet into my car and sent me on my way in the wee hours of the morning to drive home. He then stonewalled me for 2 to 3 days afterwards and wouldn't speak with me. And we kind of just let the conversation die, and I never brought it up again. Cue New Year's Eve 2023. I had my kids that weekend, and so per usual, I would usually spend time with them, and we wouldn't really do things together. However, it was New Year's Eve. You would think you would want to be with your girlfriend. You would think you would ask her what she is doing on this major national bank holiday, where we are ringing in the new year. No word of what I was doing. He knew I was going to Legoland for the day. I was at Legoland, and the entire day he ignored me. He didn't talk to me. He pretty much just forgot about me, because guess where he spent his New Year's Eve? You got it. His bestie's house. He spent the entire New Year's Eve day at her house, partying with her, drinking, who knows what else, and then didn't even call me on New Year's Eve at all, didn't check in with me, didn't wish me a happy New Year's Eve, and I spent New Year's Eve 2023 crying my eyes out and rang in the new year crying because my boyfriend completely ignored me on New Year's Eve and spent it with his best friend of 10 years, who he had a sexual relationship with at the beginning of their relationship, admittedly. And honestly, as I stated earlier in this video, it all came down to the energy. He was never fully invested in our relationship. He would do things like New Year's Eve and just ignore me, stonewall me, go for days without speaking to me, go for hours without speaking to me. And that in and of itself is indicative that he's entertaining other people, other parties. And to be quite fair, it was just all too convenient that he had his best friend close at hand, who he had a sexual relationship with and seemed to prioritize in every other way. I brought it up to him a few other times during our relationship, and he flatly denied it, but was really, really awkward around it. His energy was super off-putting, and he in fact told me the name of another person randomly who I'd never met, who was in fact the married girl that he had had an affair with, because he was trying to get me off course and steer me down another path of thinking that it was somebody else. Okay, lastly, this is the most crazy evidence ever. So she has this lantern tattoo on the inside of her forearm. It is so ornate. When I say a lantern, it is all curvy. It is like a very distinct lantern. He has the exact same lantern at his house, prominently placed in his kitchen. He's done some YouTube videos where it's like prominent, like it's out. So to me, it's like an important lantern. She was telling me about all of her tattoos one time at her house, and I asked her about the lantern, and she was like, oh, I just like lanterns. Like, I mean, look at my house. They're everywhere. I just like lanterns. All of her other tattoos had a very specific meaning. That is the most weirdest piece of evidence ever, but they have to be correlated because this lantern was super unique and she had a freaking ginormous tattoo of it on her inner forearm. Here's a picture of like relatively how this lantern looked. So what do you think? Was I being cheated on? Am I being out of pocket? And am I being a frantic ex-girlfriend that is delusional? Let me know in the comments.